personnel. I have a meeting with DH personnel, as a matter of fact, next Monday to talk about what spaces they might have. If they have some spaces available, office spaces, I don't know what they have, but that may allow us to actually jumpstart this earlier than having to build a facility. I think I told you folks that, but I had some pretty interesting discussions with Congresswoman Kutch's office and Senator Shaheen's office. They really wanted us to submit a project for this year that was due on April 15th, but of course, we're not ready for that yet. But I told them that we will have a project for next year for funding for bricks and mortar. At least I think we will. So that's the timeline on that. Andrew, do you have anything that you want to update anybody on before we jump into this tax exemption proposal?
I don't have any updates. What I was thinking was, since you're only going to be with us till 6:30, that I'll just do my overview presentation since you've already seen it at that point.
So folks, if you've had a chance to look at this, are there any initial thoughts, any questions or concerns about what has been written? There's actually one tweak that we made since I sent out the original to you. The attorney made a change to that. But other than that, any initial thoughts, any recommended changes, concerns on it?
I didn't have a chance to go over it thoroughly, but I thought, I'm glad you're obviously having it to the assessors. Did we ever talk about the, this is for a property tax exception, correct?
Correct.
And it's for both privately owned and for nonprofits?
It is, yes.
Terrific.
For
Terrific.
licensed childcare providers.
Okay, great.
So
Great.
one of the things that may cause people that are providing home care right now to actually get licensed, because it's going to be a benefit to do so and meet those requirements. So there'd be an incentive to do that. That may cause concern for other people. It's like, well, now the number of properties is going to expand. Well, that may be, but I'm not overly concerned about that, because that helps us to meet our objectives of professionalizing this sector.
Yep, excellent.
I suspect the Assessors Association, I already talked to the head assessor from Hudson. He was the chairman of the association of the assessors. And, he looked at it, he said, he didn't look at this yet, but I talked to him about it. We were at a social event and he said, well, when you get it, let me take a look at it. So I gotta woo him over, but I will. Because it's more paperwork for them, bureaucrats, you know what I mean? They just don't like more paperwork. But anyway, any thoughts about, I've got a few ideas in terms of bipartisan support, who we might get, especially for Republicans, who we might get. Any ideas or any thoughts on that right now anyway? Jackie?
Yeah, I would suggest starting in the Senate. It's just easier, right? You probably know that. And so, certainly Senator Jeb Bradley.
Yep, that's what I was thinking.
Right. Senator Whitley.
Yep.
Becky Whitley. You probably know them all, but I think, I think it would be a very easy bipartisan bill in the Senate would be a guess. And then the House, obviously Representative Kim Rice, she's children and family law, although this wouldn't go through that committee, right? Where would it go, Shaun? Commerce?
I'm not sure. They might send it to a municipal and local government. And I've got a lot of friends there, obviously. I know all those people.
Sure. Yeah.
But we're looking for a power player in the Republican Party that can make sure it gets ushered through and makes it through the process and doesn't get left on the scrap heap. So we got to think about that. Of course, we got elections coming up too here. Right.
It may be. Yep.
But you're right. I need a Republican in the House and a Democrat in the House. If I can get 4 sponsors, 2 senators, and 2 representatives, and I'm 2 that have some influence. That's I think the best way to go. But Jeb Bradley and Senator Whitley, they work together. They've worked together pretty closely on this issue.
Yes, they have.
I think that's our power team right there.
I do.
Move this forward.
Yep. And Erin Hennessy, Senator Hennessy.
Yep.
She's terrific.
Yep. I talked to my own senator. She said, I'll do it, but I don't have the influence. And you're better off.
She's newer. Yeah.
Yeah, she said, believe me, I'm going to support it and all, but you're better off with Jeb Bradley and Rebecca Whitley.
That's right. Right. Yeah.
Any other thoughts about this proposed legislation that we have here? Feel free to send it out to other people to look at and get comment from, with all of your allies and your connections. I'm going to need support to do this. I'm going to need those allies lined up when we have that first public hearing. Those of you who've been through it, you've been through it before, and they're going to have to, reach out to their allies in the legislature to help move this thing forward. Otherwise, it, chances are not good at going.
Shaun, if you,
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, in terms of timing and stuff like that, if you can just make sure that either communicate with me or with Brooke and Sarah directly, just so
Right.
we can mobilize the advocacy work group to get behind us in whatever ways that we can. I mean, they can maybe come up with some creative ideas, but if there are specific people or timing or formats or something like that that would be helpful, just let us know.
Yeah, because really we've done our part technically, right? It's on to them next. They're the advocacy group and how they want to handle that. So we need to definitely work hand in hand with them to move that forward. But I'm just trying to strategize. I got other bills that we deal with, and we always have a strategy session to figure out how the best way to make this survive and make it through the process without too much action on the cutting board, as the saying goes.
Yeah, I think
I was
you'll,
just-
oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to ask before I forget what I was going to say. I was just going to ask if we could definitively find out who's on that committee that we need to target. Which committee looks at this, and then we'll know, kind of
That's right.
narrow it down.
It'll be who the House chair assigns it to. It isn't necessarily fit in a neat box. It depends.
Right.
If they want something passed, they'll send it to a committee that may not be germane to this to get it through. That happens sometimes. And some of that's going to change with elections, of course, coming out.
Right.
But we can target it for what we know it is to be now. And
Yep.
move from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Normally, this would probably go to municipal and county government.
Okay.
In the House. In the Senate, it's the municipal committee that they have. The municipal election and municipal affairs, I think, is what it is. And I think Senator Grace is chair of that right now, if I remember right. Not Greg. Yeah, Greg from Rochester. I think he's got that. Jackie, you muted. You muted, Jackie.
Sorry. Senator Gray can be a little tough on some issues, but right. But I think, with Jeb Bradley already as one of the prime sponsors, et cetera, I think it would go well.
I would meet with Senator Gray and I would talk to him.
Yeah, great.
Other thoughts initially? So I guess I kind of need some direction as you think we're ready to move this to the advocacy committee and move it to other people to take a look at, like the Board of Assessors, the Assessors Association, get their input, and the NHMA attorney. If you think we're ready for that, if you folks want to mull it over a little bit longer, we do have some time. I think September is the deadline for the House, and we're gonna ask this to be a Senate bill anyway, and they have a little bit longer. I think November, I think, is their deadline, if I remember right.
Yep. And in election year, it's usually a little longer, actually. It might be early December in the Senate. But I think, what we've learned this year, Shaun, and, with the workforce bill, the childcare community, will like this bill because we're all going to work on it together. And they rally really well. They mobilize really well. And so I think you'll have a lot of allies and a lot of time for this to be the right language.
Right, and that's the key, is going to be building those allies over the summer as we get into the fall. And you folks know who they are. I do not. I deal with a different set of folks, right, on municipal and county government issues. And I'm going to really need your help to help rally the right people at the right time, those who are good speakers. And then normally when we go into it, we have different people speak on different points, so it's not repetitive, you know the deal. And make sure we get the point across from different perspectives. So we're going to want to build that strategy as we go into the fall. Again, a lot of our advocacy committee, that's really more their domain than it is mine. So we're going to want to work collaboratively with them to get this across the finish line.
A quick question, because I don't know, I'm not familiar with the municipal committees, but does the BIA, do they listen? Are they influential there, or who's really influential there?
BIA is going to be influential because they have influence on the top folks in the House. So that's what
Right.
they generally don't the folks in municipal and county affairs are usually, a lot of them have a municipal background. They're either on planning board or something like that.
Oh, I see.
But they have a lesser influence, but we want a diverse coalition of people
Yes.
supporting. I would
Yes.
think they would support this because it doesn't hurt them at all. It helps businesses because a lot of these are businesses, these small childcare facilities,
Right.
and it certainly helps the workforce. So I wouldn't think they would be in opposition. They'd be allies.
Yeah, they've been good allies this year, and I anticipate that moving forward very strongly with the new CEO, Mike Skelton. Yeah.
The only opposition may be my own camp, and that's the Hampshire Municipal Association, because it's a property tax exemption. And the Assessors Association may not like that, but I'll deal with them because I'm on that board, so I'll have to fight that battle myself. So do we feel comfortable in moving this forward? Do we want to think about it some more? I just kind of need some thumbs up, thumbs down as to what you think. Okay. So Andrew, we need to move this over to our Advocacy Committee. Have them start talking about it. I should probably go over it with them at whenever their next meeting is, if that sounds good. I think we'll do that before I send it out to anybody else. And if they concur, then I'll deal with the Assessors Association, NHMA, and then we can start strategizing about who the allies are and get them lined up and start talking this up and go from there. If that makes sense.
Yep. And the advocacy work group meets next on Friday the 13th at 9:30. So, and you could hop on at any point between 9:30 and 11, of course, but.
And Shaun, once you've got that through the advocacy group here, there's a statewide advocacy group on childcare that meets weekly at the moment. It won't be weekly during the summer, but as soon as you feel it's ready or we feel it's ready, you should come to that meeting to tell them about it. Okay. Amy and I sit on that.
Okay, sounds like a plan. And you guys will have to help me that because I don't know who the players are, and you can line up the right folks on that and help me with that piece.
And Jesse's on that too.
Okay. Anything else on that issue before we move on to the next? So I think some of you jumped in a little bit later. We're waiting for the survey to come back from Kim Voda to be able to finalize the scope for the consultant for the consumer cooperative. We can get that launched.
I have that being aggregated. I think she had a draft for me this morning, so she'll probably have it done tomorrow. It was a quick turnaround. There were a lot of kind of I'm wondering if we want to go back and gather more information, but she is trying to take time off. So we had a window to collect surveys. And so we ended up getting 25 split down the middle between Vermont and New Hampshire and nonprofits and for-profits. So that's great. And then we had of the 25, 10 are family childcares, licensed childcares. So that is really good information to know too. But I expect if we had a little more time, the problem was the week that it was vacation week of April.
Amy, what proportion of total operating centers is that? Like what response rate did we get?
It was probably from what I want. Well, okay, if I just went with the center based at 15, probably like 25% of what I thought I would like to get above 50%.
Yeah.
So, but I think I had gotten some like people that like, can I do it tomorrow? I'm not that, I'm on vacation. I get back tomorrow. So we did do a couple of late ones. And then I had people like, I had late, like we kept getting those responses. I'm out of the office, contact so-and-so if you need help. So it's like, oh man, we're backing up on this vacation week. And I wonder if we should re-engage the list of people who didn't respond. I just make a personal call and get the at least 50% done. And I'm pretty sure I can get those. It just fell on a bad time. And I don't know if, I'm not sure if she has time to aggregate that right away. We might have to wait for that extra data for like 3 or 4 weeks to get aggregated, but at least we have something to start with.
Right, I think
So
that's
I
enough
think-
for us to do the scope.
Yeah. Yep, definitely. But I think I want something more comprehensive too, because of the possible ARPA money, ARPA deep coming out and where we stand in our region. So I think what I'm going to do is just ask her for a window to aggregate it. I'll push out she does it because they respond to her, and that way the ECEA doesn't have the information. She has the aggregated information. We can get it if we need to get the individual information. But I think if I make some phone calls, we can get up to 50%. Katie probably can get another like 20. So yeah, I think that we should probably do that. But I'll send you what we have as soon as she gets it to me.
It's going to be helpful because I was telling, I don't think you had jumped in yet, Amy, is that we're Senator Shaheen and Senator Madison Lightfoot from Senator Shaheen's office, and Nick Brown from Congresswoman Custer's office, and Aaron Cotton. They're really interested in a project from us, at least from the city, on childcare. They wanted it for this recent round, and I said I'm just not ready yet. But I expect to have probably a bricks and mortar project for the next round. We need to get lined up for that because they're ready to receive those at a pretty good amount. The other thing is Amy actually did a grant for us. You want to talk about the grant, Amy? The homegrown grant that the city's with it. It's in our name, but Amy wrote it. We didn't write it.
You sign your name, so.
Right, my name's on it. That's true, but
When we were going through assigning portions of the grant, he's like, I'll do the next one, which was sign your name. Which was awesome that we have a partner with a municipality, which is, yes, it's amazing. So the homegrown is a family childcare based grant program. And our project, our proposal was to build on our PDG work with family childcare. If you don't know Katie Jenks was a family childcare provider and then became a center-based provider in her home for 20-something years. She's also a CDA coach, and she's the PD specialist for the CDA. So she's rocking it. And so we started that project for the PDG. Katie is facilitating a network of licensed family providers, and we would like to build on that. And we would also, part of the project, which kind of was one of the things that they tend to give precedence to, is FFN, so family, friend, neighbor. What we've been seeing, Katie, our whole team at ECEA monitors some of the Facebook pages, and we know these names of people that are taking kids that are not licensed or regulated yet, and we would love to engage them, especially if we had some grant money there is startup money in Vermont. There might be startup money in New Hampshire. It would be great if Katie could have some time to put just to connect and bring those people in and help them with licensing. And we also have found out through our project for the PDG that we have providers that are established that are willing to expand enrollment if they had support for the payroll piece. So just giving them Stuart Gates and getting them set up with a laptop and QuickBooks and program and connecting to a payroll service, they are able to, if they can find somebody, we're working on that, that they would actually take more kids without having to go through the whole startup. So hoping, I met with the homegrown people, Shaun, in Texas when I was there a couple of weeks ago. I don't think I've spoken to you since, and told her a little bit about our project, and she was excited. So we'll see. I think when it went to notification, and I just schmoozed her and bought her a drink. I didn't do it. No, I'm just kidding. When was it? They're going to announce it like the 1st of June?
Yeah, it's pretty soon because that $20,000 piece for the planning piece, and then we only have so many days to get the full plan in for the $100,000 a year for the next 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we actually have 7 months of planning. So, but within that time, we have to come up with that plan, but I think we have a plan. So I'm excited. We'll see what happens with that. So that would be great.
And that's Grafton County and Upper Sullivan, all of Upper Sullivan County from Claremont North and all of Grafton County, right? Yeah.
Right.
So I remember we put in there for that. So that's in the works, and hopefully we're successful with that. And like I said, I've got a meeting on Monday with 2 folks from Dartmouth Health in regards to possibly using one of their buildings for Boys and Girls Club to come up and run a childcare center for low-income people to meet the equity issue that we don't. None of my plans, none of the things I've got in the works are really going to help that, but this would help that. We might be able to do that on a shorter notice if they have any space to do that. And Faye, I don't know if there's anything at APD or not. I don't think there really is. There's not a whole lot of space there available. But we're going to be looking for the place for a bricks and mortar. I have a city property, but I'd like to use something else, Faye.
Yeah, I'm taking notes on that one because there has been a little bit of talk in the past. And again, I can't speak to it, but I know that, they have been talking about, is there space? Where would it be? So I will bring this to the people who may have some ideas.
Yeah, I had the discussion.
There would definitely be interest.
I had the discussion with Peter Glenshaw as well. And that was a few months ago. We just weren't ready to move anything forward, but we're getting closer. And that would be a really good location. It's right on the bus route. Whereas my industrial park is not on a bus route. It's not as ideal as, and it doesn't have the sidewalk network that we would have by your facility. So I'm going to try to work one of those.
So just to clarify, the last time we met, we had questions about whether or not this would be an RFP process. When you said the Boys and Girls Club would open this for low income for equity, it's a done deal that it would be not an RFP and?
No. So if I was going to work on an arrangement with an existing piece of product, let's say that DH has office space they can use right now. They would be able to work that out on a temporary basis. So a city location with a city building, that's going to require an RFP process.
Right.
But a temporary measure to get them going with something up here, they're ready to do that now. They actually have a director who could move up here and do that because they were going to do that for the after school program. And they're running one in Plainfield and New London right now.
Okay. As I mentioned at the last meeting we had as a collaborative, that this whole project is bringing in all the other childcares to be part of that discussion or opportunity seems like it would be a really good thing to do rather than just bringing in somebody new who's never been part. That's what we talked about last time when Brenda was here too from Let's Grow Kids. Just the way to really make people feel engaged is to really have it be sort of a collaborative or an opportunity for bidding, et cetera, et cetera. Has there been a market survey of the need?
Is this, I'm going to jump in because isn't the Boys and Girls Club, that's the program that was at Mount Lebanon School in West Lebanon closed down. So it was an existing program that shut down and it sounds like they are now trying to reopen it.
Well, yeah, that was YMCA. That was the YMCA program.
It's a different group, Faye.
Yeah, and they brought in the Montessori school to run that.
To run that one. Okay, so this is in addition to, got it.
Yeah, we were looking at an emergency situation. That's why I had them up here. I worked with them before. But again, this is not my area. So if you guys want to look at this in a different way, talk to me about how we would do it because this is not I'm a fish out of water here. So
all I'm advising is it would feel, I think, to the Upper Valley childcare programs to be very respectful, to have this conversation with them as opposed to direct, having having just someone picked. I know if I was a childcare program still in this area, I would say, whoa, I would have liked to have had a bid on that or opportunity to, and also, is the need there? Or are they going to be leaving so-and-so's program for $22 an hour here? Seriously, I think that's the worry I would have from a collaborative point of view.
That's definitely going to happen because they pay more. So they are going to take other programs. There's no question about that. In terms of a need for the number of children, that's clearly a need. I know my staff can't even find places to go. So and a lot of our childcare centers, of course, are only taking a smaller number of the people they used to take. So I don't think
and that's exactly what's going to happen. I'm wondering if there's any way that we can look at, if DH is involved and DH wants to be involved, if we can do this, and if you're going to be, be fast tracking this, can we make this a lab school? Can their commitment to getting the contract be that they're going to open up and train, be available to mentor new teachers? We have, what the ECA is running into is we have people interested in coming into the field. Katie talks to them all the time. Tanika's not here, but we're talking like over 119 plus 90, even if you got a percentage of them that want to come to the field, but we've saturated the entry level position, Shaun, like at the a teacher assistant where you don't need any past criminal background check. Those are all filled. Right now, they need associate teachers for the most part and lead teachers in order to open classrooms back up to provide the very spaces that we're short that you're talking about. So, but what we need is they can't afford to hire them and train them and not use them. But they need people in the count and they have strict budgets. So what we're looking at is, which I would love, I don't know if the congressional funding could be used for this, is to have a pipeline. Let's start a pipeline now. We could use, build it so there's that one-way mirror, that one-way window, so you can do observations like without, infringing on the classroom. Like build it like a lab school, and take on that commitment. DH takes on the commitment. Then $22 isn't, they're mentor teachers. They're going to be asking a lot of them.
I have to run downstairs because I have a council meeting I have to go to. So we have another meeting coming up, and what I'll do is I'll just talk to DH and I won't do anything until we talk again, if that makes sense to everybody. And we can line this up and strategize it, because again, you folks know how to do this better than I do. So I'm definitely open to discussions. So,
excellent. Thank you.
Talk to you folks later.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shaun.
I wanted to ask, sorry, I don't know why I'm echoing all of a sudden. I wanted to ask if maybe it would be helpful for Shaun and for this idea if this group comes up with a way to present that to the childcare community. I think he's absolutely amenable to it. It's just not, he's like, people need childcare right now, yesterday. So, and Amy, I'm glad that you said that about making it into a lab school so that it has a place in the broader, like in the local community of childcare providers. Because I think that could be a real change in the relationship in terms of we're not just here to like take and pay more and displace, but everybody needs to be paid a livable wage, and we're gonna like, contribute to the community in that way. So I'm wondering what kind of a forum, you all, I mean, Amy and Jackie and Katie specifically, what do you think would be the best way to do that? Should we hold a meeting and invite certain people? Should it be an open meeting?
I think. Go ahead, Katie.
Sorry, Jackie. If you do hold a meeting, I think it should just be open to everybody. Put it out there, what we're thinking about, and just put it out there. They have the options. Honestly, a lot of these people are not going to have any interest in doing it, but at least and Jackie's right. At least you've put it out there. The feeling is positive. They know that it's a good thing and they're welcoming to it. And I think we're at a point now where in the past, it has been very difficult. They don't get along. There's this ridge, there's this competition. And now we're entering the stage where they're really talking to one another and they're communicating. And I think exactly what Jackie said, we'd hate to take that back to that place that would make things rocky. So just an invite to everybody, a general meeting or a letter or something to say, this is what we're thinking about, would just give them a heads up, but nobody's going to want to do it.
And then do we say, okay, after this meeting is held, we discuss it. Let's say it's an hour and a half long meeting. We present the idea. There's a structured kind of Q&A. We could have breakout rooms, however we want to garner feedback. is it, is it the kind of thing where then we say, okay, you have from 2 weeks after the meeting is done to say, we would like to do this, here's what we would need to do it,
letter
or
of
have some
interest
kind
or
of,
something.
yeah, okay,
Mhm.
okay.
I think that would be wise, and I think that would feel inclusive and welcoming to everybody who would want to attend in the Upper Valley. Katie and Amy can do their magic to try to get people to listen in. But I think I agree with everything Katie just said about making people feel welcomed and included should they wish. There may be very few who would want to do this, and then it's logical that the Boys and Girls Club comes in and everyone's welcoming and they're a partner in this area as opposed to a competitor.
So one question I have is, in terms of having it be a lab school, what am I trying to say? I don't know how the Boys and Girls Club how the staff are trained. I don't know. I mean, I know they're a national group and it's, ostensibly high quality and they're all about equity. I know that. But is that, do they teach in a way that we want, propagated? And by I mean the community. So like,
I got excited when I heard DH because I was in a meeting, one meeting anyway, and I was looking at the New Hampshire Apprenticeships, and one of the things featured in the New Hampshire Apprenticeships page was this project between a high school and Dartmouth, and Jenny McCauley was the one who was quoted in the article. Jenny McCauley, Andrew, if you are thinking that's Upper Valley Strong, she's a connection through Upper Valley Strong. She's in workforce development. And I've talked to her about their workforce development process. And I feel like DH can help us with this. If they want to partner and Dartmouth, it wants to get into whatever, but I feel like there's a place for Dartmouth Hitchcock to, whether they're providing the space, maybe, I hate to say the community college system, but maybe we could find a place for that piece, for the workforce development piece. Maybe the ECA works with Jenny McCauley and workforce development and creates a program that is facilitated through their program. So we'd have to train we could train their teachers if they're not trained.
Why not use the systems that are out there like the community college system? That
now,
confuses
because
me.
So what happens what we're finding is that people in the community college system are going through the community college system. Now, we could definitely partner with the community college system, but these people are not taking courses. They will not take a college course. And I actually had a long conversation. Yes, and so this is what Vermont sort of has figured out, that they have it through adult learning.
Okay, right.
And so our CDA program that we're doing, I spoke with Judy Watkins this morning, and we were talking about kind of doing it backwards. They do the CDA. We're going to be doing a couple of add-ons and working with NHTI to give them 6 credits. Now, when I kind of mentioned that to, Andrew, help me with the name, Allison Chisholm, she was like, why can't River Valley do that? And I'm like, River Valley can do that, but you haven't wanted to do that. They didn't want it. They don't want you to take the CDA. They want you to take 9 credits. So it's kind of New Hampshire has been sort of CDA yay, CDA nay. And so we've been trying to navigate that, but these people are not college people. They're not going to sign up and do the college route. And and we've had
deal
more
with
success
them
with the CDA every day.
I'm dealing with them every day, and they will say not, and it's okay. Like, the beauty of the program is that they can have 3 children and have to go to baseball games and, still be able to go to work and be able to live their life, but yet get educated to get a better wage and help somebody in the classroom. They can be a lead teacher.
So one of the things that I find really powerful about this idea is, we have a real obsession with climbing the ladder. And if everybody climbs the ladder, then we have no teachers. We have a bunch of directors. And A, not everybody wants to do that. B, that is not where everybody's skill set is. And C, that is not a sustainable model. And so we are not, in terms of retention, I know lots of really, really experienced teachers who don't get a lot of opportunities to deepen their knowledge, instead of like progress, right? It's like this linear idea. So the opportunity to mentor somebody is like a really amazing experience. Now it takes capacity to do that.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I am concerned about in this idea is like somebody's got to have, that's like another layer in between, right? That we're putting in there. However, I think that would be an incredible investment for retention and recruitment, as well as affordable childcare. So that I think, and I think being explicit about that opportunity is important. So
I feel like if the Upper Valley values early childhood and they really want to, this is an opportunity to do it. This is an easy place to invest money or space or whatever. Sorry, Jesse.
Just no, that it's all great information. I guess, I have missed several meetings, so I'm playing a lot of catch up tonight. I've read notes and I've watched some of the recordings, but what was the initial impetus for this conversation? Is the way Shaun described it, like there's a building available and he's found potential partner in DH to do some piece of it, and then the Boys and Girls Club might be the actual provider. But what sort of like what is the concept? Is it just to create a new center with more seats, or what was the
so we have some ideas this group has some ideas, which is a common model across the country, to have, in terms of public-private partnerships, an employer purchase slots so that their employees can go there. However, Dunkin' Donuts is not going to do that for their employees. That's always Shaun's example, and it's a great one.
Right.
So that's why he said this would solve that equity problem, right? That's like a shorthand for the fact that we can create slots for certain segments of the population, but that's not creating equitable access to affordable childcare. So, and the Boys and Girls Club, I think is just like he said, it's kind of like a ready to go sort of thing. And he, in what I don't know how it evolved, but he ended up, talking to Chris Emond about it. And so that's how that's kind of that particular partnership ended up happening, as far as I understand. So, and like now what we're talking about is, okay, well, how could we solve that problem in a way that responds to the current context of the field and the industry, and still checks that box.
Got it. Okay. Right. So, right. That makes more sense. And so in terms of sort of, solving or addressing the equity problem.
Yeah.
So the center itself would have some employer purchase slots and then also some subsidized, or what does the center itself look like? I mean, has that been?
My understanding was he was looking for this one to be all like as many subsidized slots as were available, that this wouldn't be like a combo model, but I'm not sure. I mean, it's also like, it's up to us to figure that out, I think, is part of the answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Andra, I wonder if Dartmouth Hitchcock, if Dartmouth Health is going to be donating or giving or whatever space, I would be surprised if they had a lot of their employees, they didn't want to have access to this, and they probably don't fit into the subsidized childcare families. So I would guess that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I know that there was, so I'm just thinking of like, I know at Dartmouth College that they've been asking for expansion there. So I know a lot of places, like either they're not running or they're busting at the seams. So
can I just jump in as far as employees, DH employees? There are categories of workers who do fall into the subsidized level, and they do so there's a significant number who are very aware that they cannot afford the childcare currently. And Dartmouth the DHNC childcare is only for the main campus. So
Okay,
APD and other clinics don't have access to that, even if, and if they have a subsidy, it is still well beyond what they can afford.
mhm.
That's been my experience in conversations. So,
But I imagine that's all to be worked out now that this is sort of still a brand new idea of where the new,
yeah, right. And there was no number given, so who knows what percentage, yeah, but there would be some employees that would qualify if they chose to use it.
gotcha.
Say, do you know of the New London Early Learning Center?
Is that Judy Parkinson's place?
Did she just close?
She's
Weeks ago?
going to close, yeah. She's closing,
40 slots.
think so.
So we just lost another one. And Tina Walker said that they're only taking DH employees at ABC.
Hmm.
So we're kind of struggling here. And did Judy, what is her name? Judy Parkinson? What'd you
Judy
say?
Parkinson, yep.
Parkinson, did she say it was because of staff?
I actually haven't asked her why. I haven't talked to her. I just knew about it from Facebook.
It would be nice if we could, because she's sort of in our catchment area.
Is she?
The
Good.
reason we haven't engaged her, she doesn't come up in New Hampshire Connections at all.
Yeah, she's a powerhouse. She's a great
I'm
person.
just like, is there any way to keep her could we do something, or is it too late? Is my wonder.
I would
So-
call her, Amy. Just go ahead and call her.
So the problem is she doesn't come up. I can't get any contact information because that center does not come up on New Hampshire Connections.
Right. Yeah.
For some reason.
Okay. And so New London is in the Upper Valley? Yeah.
Well, it's Merrimack County, I guess, but it's technically our catchment area. We work with New London, so.
Okay.
The upper valley is a moving target.
I got it. Okay. Thank you.
Weird. Yeah,
Thank you.
so we would, I don't think Jesse would argue if we can save anybody within driving distance of the Upper Valley, we would
Right.
try to.
Yeah.
I knew nothing about this. Katie, did you hear of this? You did? Okay, was it because of staff? You don't know?
I'm not sure. Yeah, I did hear about it through Facebook. She was selling, I think
Oh.
she's already started selling some stuff.
Yeah. I think she
and
was
so-
burned to a crisp
Yeah.
and she's retirement age. But I can connect you, Amy. I can connect you with Judy. But also, yeah, I would just say the other question I have is, does your survey going to show, or do you already know how many closed classrooms might be in your catchment area that could be reopened?
I haven't looked at it yet, but it will reveal how many empty slots there are. How many empty license slots are not being used.
Great, because that will also point to the need of where, can those be restarted as well, as opposed to a brand new center? I mean, that's sort of what we've always said from Early Learning New Hampshire's advocacy point of view. Reopen the existing slots before building new.
I also want to, when Amy mentioned lab school, it's something that I've been thinking about it, for a while. And as we think about all these issues and all these people closing, the biggest reason why they're closing is because there's no staff. There's nobody to move in and help them out. And,
Big reason.
the lab school itself would be hugely helpful, because we could use that opportunity to train these staff with the intention for them to go out and work in these centers. So that would be my plug for the lab schools. I think we're in desperate need of some place to officially train. It's one thing for me to encourage somebody to get their CDA, take that education piece and get the book learning and what little they are getting in the classroom from the center that they're working in. But it doesn't mean that they're going to be an excellent provider. They really need that hands-on as well. They need that mentorship. And so if we could find a way to combine it all, we would be very fortunate, I think, to have a lot of qualified staff that centers would be really excited about having.
Yeah. The business model for a lab school is much different than a regular center. It takes more money.
Mhm.
It takes
Yeah.
more investment. Yeah. It's a great idea. Does take more investment. Yep.
DH is looking.
Someone just pulled over and took something out of my front yard. I'm sorry.
Really?
They reversed in the road and someone got out and took something out of my front yard. I wonder what it was. Sorry.
Hopefully it was an Amazon package.
No.
Okay.
If so, they're probably getting rat toys or something. We have pet rats.
Oh, really?
Maybe it was a coyote or something. I read an article.
Ah,
A family around where I live took home a baby coyote thinking it was like a stray puppy. and
oh
then
no. Oh
realized it was
no.
In terms of that workforce development layer that we're talking about, what do you think would be the best way to have that made up? Like, I'm thinking of people like the person you were just talking about who is retiring because she's totally crisped up, and however many years of knowledge that person has. Now, I
I know.
understand there's
It's a
the
shame.
official high quality standards, and I'm not, spitting on those at all. And there's experience that you just get on the job.
Right.
And
Right.
that's one of the things that, like, I know a lot of like family providers get looked down on by, preschool, like in public school preschool providers, because you're not a real teacher, you're just a babysitter.
Mm,
And we all know how child development knowledge works. These are not just babysitters.
right.
They are neurologists, just like every parent is, right? We all do this. So,
Mhm.
I'm just curious about how we could like creatively put something together. Cause to me, this seems like a really neat opportunity rather than like just pulling an off the shelf, using the community college system for sure, because that's a structure.
You really want them as a
But how do
partner
we,
in
yeah,
training.
right. But then how do we people that with like the wealth of experience that there is out in the hinterlands now?
Yeah. Interesting.
Because
Yeah.
centers have closed, so
Right, right.
and people didn't leave because they lost their passion
Right.
for the work, right?
That's
Burning out is different, but this
That's
might
right.
be like revitalizing for some people. So
Mhm. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. And I do really encourage the community college, maybe River Valley, some person has not been very innovative or forward thinking, but my experience with community college system, both statewide and individual colleges, they're ready to innovate. They're ready to do something interesting. And I would really try to build into the Upper Valley something that can be replicated in other places. So using the systems that are out there and making them better, Katie, right? Naming, like making them so that they are welcoming again, I would really encourage that.
well, honestly, I would think that like developing a really accessible on-ramp would be
Right.
great advertising for a community college to have, right?
Right.
So like we
Yeah.
help working families, right? Like that's
Yeah.
people, I would want to pay them money to go
Yeah.
to school there, right? So
Right.
um
I bet you there's a model in another state that's doing exactly that.
Oh,
We don't have to
no
reinvent
doubt.
the wheel here. Yeah.
yeah, no doubt. Well, maybe we could include this in a community conversation, that in the first
Right.
part of like that we're coming up with this idea, and
Mhm.
then pull from the
Want it
community
to
in that way.
solve.
Like maybe
Yeah.
maybe it's a 2-hour meeting and we kind of do a a brainstorming strategy
Yeah.
session or
Cool.
whatever at the end of it.
That'd be neat. One of the women on my board, Kathy Bogoshiels, is the president of the trustees of the community college system, and she would be all over this. Right? Just the idea of doing something innovative and meeting people where they're at. So if you ever, want her in on any meeting or anything, just let me know, and I'm sure she would come. She used to run the CDFA, the Community Development Finance Authority, Kathy Bogoshield. So she's a really outside the box thinker. So yeah.
Yeah, if there's a way to get people credit for education, like let's do it.
Right. Right.
So a couple of things, Andrea, to put in the notes, that the MOU is supposed to, from Homegrown, is supposed to be to us by the 31st. So they must be announcing it. It must be a quick turnaround. So I looked at their timeline and it was like application due April 30th, MOU signed by May 31st. So somewhere like very soon we should be finding out. And then there was something else, I can't think of it. I'll think of it. I could probably mention, Jackie, that Katie, I think we're at what, around 16 CDA people total. And you have someone next week and someone else with an application and like 4 doing their portfolios.
That's great.
Yeah, I've got quite the roster this week. There should be at least 4 or 5 more finishing up in the next. It all depends on the verification visitor. Can they get here? That seems to be stretching out. We desperately need to get more verification visitors in this area, but we're looking at another 5 or 6, I think.
The biggest thing is flexibility.
Right.
Flexibility, yeah.
Right, this is why you should not try and facilitate and take notes. So I think that I have captured everything that we've talked about. Would it be helpful for this group if I did my little overview thing? I know Amy's already seen it, but it's just like an overview of the initiative right now. It breaks down who's attending the work group meetings and sort of like what tasks everybody's working on right now. I prepared it for the steering committee and then realized like actually like kind of everybody needs to be sort of holding this in their head a little bit. And the PowerPoint is up on, without my cool animation stuff, is up on the Vital Communities website. So you could go back and look at, you know, all the things I have up, but I'm so excited about this idea we were just talking about. Like I want to start it now. I want to start planning right now. Okay, well, there's my little bat guy. So I can't see any of your faces. So if you want me, I'm going to try and like pause and make sure there's not questions and stuff before I go on, but just, you know, interrupt me if you want to, if you need to ask anything for sure. Okay, so we started with a planning committee to get the symposium going. So part 1 was about problems from multiple perspectives, having to do with equitable access to affordable, high quality childcare in the Upper Valley. Rolls right off the tongue. And the second part was on, you know, gave some solutions from multiple perspectives. And then there were some breakout sessions that asked participants of the symposia, how could you or your organization be part of a solution? How could you contribute? And the planning committee kind of took all of that information together, formed a steering committee of, I believe it was the same people from the planning committee, and but with, you know, more partners in from other pockets of the Upper Valley area, early childhood work. And we came up with 3 work groups out of the ideas that folks contributed to the symposium. One was on, you know, facilities and program models. So the aim of this group, which is this one, is to identify and catalyze strategies to reduce operational costs for early care and education providers. Another is the workforce recruitment and retention work group. So looking at short and long-term strategies to increase retention and recruitment of ECE staff. And the third work group is advocacy. Really looking at a bi-state exchange of policy and advocacy work. So here are the participants of the steering committee. And the purpose of the steering committee is the purpose of the initiative. So increasing the availability and affordability of high quality early care and education in the Upper Valley, prioritizing infant and toddler care, funding and research, both on established best practices and creative innovations that are relevant to whatever focus of the work group is. So this is kind of the sum total purpose. This is not an exhaustive list of everybody who's ever participated in this work group. And, you know, this is kind of a snapshot in time of like the folks who are most often here at these meetings. So and these are the goals and the current status of each goal. And this was a couple weeks ago, so this is actually already out of date somewhat because we're moving.
And Andra, I have a question.
Mhm.
And I should have asked it earlier. When it says a childcare consumer cooperative, consumer, is that the parents?
Mhm.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep, consumers of childcare. I
Got
don't
it.
love the word consumer, but I understand
get
why
it.
it's
I get
applicable.
Okay, just double checking that. Thank you.
I'd rather be a citizen than a consumer, but that's me. So that's where we're at with this group. That's us. And then the recruitment and retention participants. Same deal. This isn't everybody who's ever participated, but and I did not include steering committee members in these participant lists, but there are steering committee members in every work group. Facilitating, I'm at every one, and there's other steering committee members that attend as participants at the different work groups. So. And this group has some recruitment goals. And then there's some retention goals. And these are, of course, in different phases of development. So.
And Andra, as I mentioned at our last meeting, you know, the need for in the retention, you know, the mental health supports for staff,
Mhm.
you know, in the field right now. I mentioned how everyone with a license, an active childcare license, gets the SELA platform, which includes a really affordable mental health teletherapy option, which is really terrific. It also, Katie, includes anyone who is license exempt, but also in the childcare scholarship system or willing to think about it. And at some point, if you think it would be helpful, it's an incredibly affordable option that they now have available to them. So at some point, if that would be helpful, we can talk, you know, I can make sure that you guys know about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think for that goal in particular, starting with that compendium of like what is currently available and where are the gaps is a really important place to start. So that is a huge need. And then these are the advocacy work group participants, not including steering committee members that facilitate and attend. Tammy Hazlitt very faithfully attends that meeting and can never speak or be on camera because she is providing ECE. And she's very active in the chat, so it's pretty amazing. big kudos to her for her ability to multitask at a very high functioning level. Oops, sorry. And again, you know, the advocacy work group, it's a little unique from the other two work groups in that it really does depend on its relationships with the other work groups' goals. So it has, like, you know, as you see here, has established some of its own ideas and goals, but it really is nimble in being able to respond to what's needed from the other groups. So.
And Andra, I'll put in the chat, there was a recent wonderful op-ed written by the president of the CEO of the Business and Industry Association, as well as the CEO of the New Hampshire Women's Foundation, a really good op-ed on the childcare crisis. I'll put the link to it in the chat.
Oh, great,
And
thank you.
I think I just heard that the union leader just picked it up too, this op-ed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And, you know, things like that, I'm going to put in a little plug for the ECE list serve that's just started a
yeah.
couple of weeks ago. But
Yeah,
that's a
right.
great place to post things like that.
True, right.
Because it gets the language out there too, in like a, you know, in a
Right.
public way, and puts it next to all the other things happening. So feel free
Yeah.
to post any of that
Okay,
on there.
thank you.
It also gets around any paywalls, but so these are just some things I came up with for, you know, sort of all of us to keep in the back of our minds, with all the other things we're keeping in the front of our minds and the backs of our minds and the sides of our minds at this point. But just to, you know, we're you know, none of us are operating in a vacuum here. And that as we're discussing ideas and taking action, you know, we want to be able to do that in a coordinated fashion. So we're not tripping all over each other or missing things. So these are just some questions I think to keep in mind. You know, I think that the steering committee is going to go through like a more formal process to sort of discuss these and sort of put some kind of structure together across the 3 work groups. Because that will help with timelines and things too, as they're getting started. But so
That was excellent.
that's sort of all of it.
I love that. That was really a great way of visualizing and hearing it. I like that.
Good. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions, or is anyone shocked by anything or dismayed, or doesn't have to be a positive reaction? Well, like I said, you know, that might be a helpful tool as well. Like, as we're thinking about, you know, we have some more defined goals than we've had, you know, obviously getting started with the initiative and stuff. And so, you know, re-engaging anybody who isn't coming anymore, or engaging folks that you feel like should be here, that might be a nice concrete way to say, like, this is, you know, go to the Vital Communities website, you can get the link, and, you know, they can click through the slides. And I'm always happy to meet with people one-on-one and talk to them about, because you know, the whole thing is like, nobody is going to do this unless they see themselves in the work. And not everybody sees themselves in the work, even if they realize that there's a crisis, or there's even like a problem. You know, that, you know, it's like, well, that's somebody else's to deal with. I don't have little kids, or, you know, whatever ways people have of compartmentalizing that. But, you know, all the unique perspectives and experience that we can get from the community is valuable. So.
So again, I haven't been at a lot of meetings, so I still feel sort of new or catching up. But, you know, I guess I'm wondering if there's anyone that, you know, beyond the sort of regular participants who you would want to engage, or we would want to engage more in this group. Is there sort of like any sort of key players that, you know, would be helpful to have their perspective or have them hear what's happening. It's just sort of an open question. I don't have an answer myself.
I mean, personally, I would love to see people who left the field. And again, even before the last 2 years, because the crisis was pre-COVID and also COVID is still happening. But anyways, people who left the field to bring their experience with being in this industry, and that there's a place for that, because I really do. I mean, nobody does this for the money. Nobody does it for the dignity. Nobody does it for the glory. Like, you're getting messy. You're getting, it can be stressful. It's, all this stuff, right? And care work is not easy, and but it's like incredibly rewarding. It's a vocation, and anybody who sticks with it for more than 3 months, there's people who go in and they're like, I really want to, oh, you know what? This is not for me. But anybody who sticks with it for more than 3 months, they don't leave because they don't leave because they wanted to necessarily, right? Like,
Right.
I mean, yes, of course people grow and they make changes or whatever and what they want to do with their lives. But I just, that's a lot of people that just sort of disappeared. And I guess, like, there's part of me that, I know how this community is, where people bounce around to different centers and everybody knows everybody else. And to me, there's like I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a psychologist, but there's like a diaspora of like former ECE providers who could use a way to be meaningfully connected, even if they are like, I'm never doing it again. I don't trust the systems, whatever their experience is, right?
Yeah.
But I just to me, I would love to re-engage those folks, because they're like,
That's
I don't know where they
fascinating.
are. They're out there.
That's fascinating, Andra. Right? I've never heard anyone articulate it that way, but that's really fascinating.
I don't know. Maybe it only exists in my head. I have no idea, but it's,
It does exist.
So being in the business as long as I've been in, I do have contact with a lot of those people that are no longer
Right.
in the business.
Yeah.
And it's typically money. It's typically money. They
Yeah.
can't stay afloat, and they stay in the business as long as they have children that need
Yeah.
to be in care.
Right.
They can't afford to send their children to daycare or preschool or whatever the case may be. So if they work in the field, most of the time they're given a break and so they're still earning a wage while their childcare is paid for.
Yeah.
So that
Hmm.
tends to be the issue. Once that timing is over and their kids are off to school, they go,
They go.
because they're not making enough money to
Right.
stay there. So that typically is it. And then you have the other spectrum where they're not making a lot of money, there's not a lot of benefits, and they have enough education to work in a school system.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's either one way or the other.
Yeah.
And that's their spectrum. They love it, and they will tell you that it was probably some of the best times of their lives, as much as some of the miserable, but they loved every minute of the important work that they did.
Mhm.
And they will tell you that, but it's all about the money and the fact that they need to live, they need to survive and pay their bills. So if they don't have to pay that childcare debt, they'll work in the field, still get a paycheck. And then once that's over, they move on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I wonder, on the day when Build Back Better kind of federal childcare dollars start flowing and people actually can make a livable wage in the field, I wonder how many will come back. Right? I wonder about that. And Katie, the family childcare folks that well, is there a commonality of where they go to once their kids are in school, of where they tend to work? Is there any commonality?
You mean as far as if they leave the field, shut down so typically they don't. They either are able to keep it afloat and stay going, or they get to the point where they retire, like they're just done.
Okay.
I was at a point where for me, it was just time. It was 20 something years, almost, 26 years and it was like in my home and,
Yeah.
you know, the licensing changes happen. Okay, so in order to keep going, you're going to have to redo this room and add water
Yeah.
here. And so when things change like that, is it worth it financially to do that? Or do you
Mhm.
move on? And so those things all have a huge play in that
Mhm.
game. So it's kind of like, what do you do? But most of the family, I think that the family centers, those people, while they struggle with staff, if they have a staff, they're also in a position where they can say, okay, well, the kids are going off to school now, all my older kids, I'm not going to have those kids. I'm going to keep my enrollment light
Oh,
so
okay.
that I know it's just me. I don't have to worry about a staff. I don't have to worry
Okay.
about paying somebody else. So they
Right.
can be flexible like that.
All
It
right.
doesn't solve the problem that now you are eliminating, you know, maybe 5 childcare spots.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
You know, it doesn't solve that problem, but a lot of them are still in business unless they're
Okay.
getting to that point. Some of the ones that I work with now are there and they say, they've said it for 2 years now, I don't want to get too involved because I'm really thinking about retiring.
You got it.
And,
Yeah.
you know, so they do say it frequently. They're still plugging along.
Yeah.
But that tends to be the
Yeah.
issue there. But they
Thank
have more
you.
flexibility. Family has more flexibility as
Yeah.
far as that goes.
Yeah. Thank you. And Andra and Jesse, and so a lot of the state calls that Amy and I participate in regularly, there's a whole new chorus of seasoned childcare center directors that are saying, you know, I'm almost at the end here. You know, Judy Parkinson was one of them. And so there, I think we're going to be soon, unfortunately, facing an even bigger situation where some of the seasoned directors that probably would have stayed for 5 to 10 to 15 more years may be giving up in the next year or two, I'm afraid. And don't you think, Amy, aren't you hearing that?
It's getting to that point, and I feel
Yeah.
like, well, I know we've engaged some at least one that I know of, family provider she was like, I think I'm gonna get done then. She's like, we got to reinvigorate it, and
Yeah,
we got
good.
her new
Gotcha.
equipment. She's like back, and she's wonderful. We did not want to lose her.
Yeah.
I did ask in the BBF meeting today on the Vermont side if I was telling them about that meeting, Jackie.
Right.
Don't we consistently have over 100 people in that meeting?
Yeah, over. We usually have 140-ish twice a month.
Andra, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So I said, Andrea was in that meeting, and I'm like, it would be great. Is there something going on in Vermont at the Vermont level where boots on the ground can talk, you know, like you invite Melissa Clement
I
to
do.
the meeting, like they get to see the state licensing chief.
Yep.
They get to ask her questions.
Every month. Yep.
And she's amazing. They
She
put
is.
the questions in the chat and Melissa gets back,
She
answers
answers
back.
them.
I know. And I think they feel more connected than they ever have before.
Ever.
And it's right in the middle of the day.
Yep.
And they show up. So I asked them that, and Andrew, what I get for answer,
Yeah.
maybe we could do one meeting like with licensing. And I'm like, no, that's not the point.
No, every
like,
month. Every month.
every
Come.
seriously.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe we can keep pushing that, Andrea. Like they were asking what role BBF could play. And
Yeah.
and I asked that question, can you play this role? And it like,
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good one. You know, we've had some childcare folks come up to us every once in a while and just say those Zoom calls are what has kept them sane, is that they know they've only got 2 more weeks and they can say something or hear something or feel not alone anymore. And it's been, you know, and we just did it because we used to have 20 to 25, Andra, in our statewide meetings for years. But those are the really staunch advocates that would come and were very involved in policy. And now it's so many diverse people working in the field. It's been really lovely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder, Amy, if that response was because, first of all, just the tone of that meeting, but also, like not any fault of yours, or like that there wasn't actually like that wasn't an apt suggestion, or even a seen need for it or whatever, but just kind of the flow of the dynamics. But I also wonder if they're so hyper focused on like having a localized solution, that proposing something statewide was like, well, that's not really within our purview.
I see.
Um,
Yeah.
And I do think that that is something that BBF could possibly, I mean, you know, relationships are funky in some of the state level stuff, you know.
Sure.
But we all know that better interface between state level agencies is what everybody needs.
Mhm.
So, you know, I mean, obviously it's valuable.
Mhm. Yeah.
Obviously it is. So
Yeah. When we get our public health officer, Dr. Chan, then we have like 350.
yeah.
But yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I know that Vermont was doing that during the beginning of COVID,
Yeah.
at least I think for the first year, I think it happened a couple of times where the
Yeah.
maternal child health director was
Right.
directly like answering questions for people on
Yeah,
how
yeah,
how
good.
do I run my program right now?
Right. Right.
So, you know, there was an investment put in that same kind of level of like giving direct high level
Mhm.
guidance in that
Yeah.
way. So. Jackie, can you remind me what that link was for that you put into the chat so I can put
Yes.
context?
So that is for I'll put it in the chat too, the New Hampshire Business Review op-ed on childcare.
Okay. So I think for our next meeting of this group, we get the right calendar of 5 of them, which will be on May 16th at 1, from 1 to 2:30. It might be a really good idea to flesh out this idea more of planning to have some kind of open conversation with childcare providers. So in the
Yeah.
meantime, and especially if you don't think you'll be able to come on the 16th, you can send me and Shaun and Jenn, who's the other facilitator of this group, Jenn Parker, just your thoughts on how to put that together so that we have your voice and your ideas there. And certainly like always consider my inbox a place for like a repository of ideas that you don't want to forget. You want to make sure you carry forward. You can always email them to me like that, and I'll, you know, populate the agenda and stuff with that. So, but yeah, and please do post on the ECE listserv as well. Like anything that has to do with early care and education, even if it's a resource or you know, an article you read, or, you know, local op-eds, or if it's advocacy call to action work. If you're aware of openings in local childcare, you know, provider, you know, facilities or centers or homes, those are totally fine to post to, and anybody can post a message to that. It's a community owned thing. So it's important to me that like I'm not the only one posting on it, because then it turns into like Andrew's project, and I don't want it to be a one-way thing. It should not be a monologue from me. You know, it's for everybody to share information on. So please do that, because people are running across all kinds of resources that I don't have time to research, and I'm hearing all this great stuff that's being put out there. So
Yeah.
especially, you know, I think honestly, like one thing that I feel like I wish that I had time for in my schedule, and I don't right now, but is to look at models and ideas from other states.
Yeah.
You know, because this is a nationwide crisis, and we're not the only rural community.
Yeah.
We're not the only one with funky geography. So
Yeah. And I've got a quick question, if I may, of Katie. Do you know if you're going to be at the May 16 meeting when we're fleshing out this idea of having having the conversation with the childcare community? Do you think you'll be on it?
I just put it on my calendar. I'm going to try to. Yeah.
Good, because
This
I
has
really
been
would
the
like your
first
advice on this.
meeting
Yeah.
that I've actually been able to get a clear picture. The rest of them have been so
Oh, that's true.
jumbled and kind of all over. This has been really helpful for me.
Good.
You know, now I feel
Having a
like I
set
can
time.
actually have, yeah.
Great.
So it's
Great.
on my calendar.
Right.
That's because we are building the car as we're driving it, which is exciting and also very confusing at first. Well, thank you. Please send any thoughts you have. I know for me, it's always like about 12 to 24 hours later, I have like this burst of ideas when I see something else after things like this. So send them over. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a good evening.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.